Are you not sure the difference between a 60 watt light, a 150 watt light, and a 200 watt light? There are a ton of lighting options available out there, and although the wattage is a good starting point, it doesn't tell the whole story. So this video is going to act as a sort of guide to help you make a decision on which light is the best option for you. We'll be covering every important detail you need to know when choosing a light, and at the end I'll share my recommendations on which light is for which creator. So with that, let's get started. One of the biggest limitations you're gonna have when choosing a light is, of course, its cost. Because if you can't afford it, it doesn't matter how good it is, you're not gonna be able to actually use it. Typically, the lower the wattage the light is, the cheaper it's going to be. In this case, I have the Inkee Gold Crow 60 watt light here, which actually retails for about $200. Whereas the 150 watt light in this case is the Godox VL150. This comes in at around $330, which is easily the most expensive light out of the three that I'm showing in this video. And last but not least, the 200 watt light I have here is from Manbily, which is an up-and-coming discount brand. And this one also is by color. But does more expensive actually mean better? Not always, as you'll see in this video. So let's move on to the next most important thing, which is light output. So typically you can assume with the lower watt number, there's going to be lower brightness and light output. However, that's not always the case, as you'll see in these tests. So for the 60 watt light from Inkee, they report a lux value of 2,765 lux at 1 meter, which isn't terribly bright, but as you can see in this video example, is decent enough. And then we have the Godox VL150, which actually has the highest reported lux at 76,000 lux at 1 meter. And then we have the 200 watt light from Manbily coming in at second with a reported 49,200 lux at 1 meter. Now, although that sounds like there's a big range and that the 150 watt light is significantly brighter than the 200 watt light, that hasn't been proven to be true in my tests. So in these tests, I adjusted the exposure for the 200 watt light at 100% output with the reflector on, all at 1 meter away from the wall. And then I kept all of my camera settings exactly the same and then just simply switched the lights out and had them all at 100% with their respective reflectors as well. And as you can see here, the 200 watt light actually has a much larger spread with its reflector. The Godox reflector is able to contain the light more and actually has a much stronger hotspot right in the center of the light, which is why I think it's reporting a much higher lux value. And this is just for when you're using the reflector, and oftentimes I'm not using the reflector, I'm actually using a softbox. So this small discrepancy between the 150 watt light and the 200 watt light doesn't bug me at all. But when you look at the 60 watt light, you will see that there is a significant drop in brightness when compared to the other two lights. Now, this light also was able to be overclocked to about 150%, making it an equivalent of a 90 watt light. And even at that higher output, it doesn't come anywhere close to the other two lights. So if brightness is a big important factor for you and you need a lot of light, you may want to consider either the 150 or the 200 watt light. Now we go on to its color accuracy, which is typically reported as CRI, color rendering index. All this means is how accurately colors are represented under this particular light. What you're looking for in a video light is anything above 95. Very few lights get close to 100. Most tend to be around 95 to 98, and these lights are no different. Starting with the Manbily 200 watt bicolor light, it comes with a CRI rating of 98. Then the Godox VL150 comes in at a CRI rating of 96. And in last place, the Inkee Gold Crow 60 watt light comes in at a CRI rating of 95. Now in practice, there isn't really much noticeable difference in terms of color rendition from these lights as you see in this test footage. But the one light that did stick out was the Godox VL150, which looked like it had a slightly more magenta tint on the light when compared to the Manbily and the Inkee Gold Crow. And the Inkee Gold Crow 60 watt light probably looked the most daylight balanced just from visual and as you can see on the histogram here in the test footage. Now, another important detail to consider when choosing your light is its size and portability and design. Once again, this pattern will hold true. The higher the wattage you go for, typically the bulkier and larger the light's gonna have to be. So the smallest light here is actually the Inkee Gold Crow 60 watt light, which is super portable, and I really appreciate its sort of flashlight design, making it super easy to handhold and use in exterior situations very easily. It's also the only light out of these three to be completely made out of metal, making it a little more hefty and durable for those exterior situations. The Godox VL150 is a mix of plastics and metal. The Manbily comes with a metal exterior, and of course, if you're going to be using any sort of Bowens mount attachments and modifiers, you're going to want to make sure your light actually has a Bowens mount included. In the case of the Inkee Gold Crow 60 watt light, the mount can actually be opened up to allow for Bowens mount modifiers, which has been super awesome and super cool and something I wasn't really expecting. The Godox VL150 and the Manbily 200 watt bicolor light both have standard Bowens mount, which is to be expected when you're going towards those higher watt output lights. Now let's move on to apps and features. I'm really over having an app for everything. I feel like I have 3 different lighting apps for 3 different lighting products, and that's the case for these lights as well. The only one that doesn't come with an app is the Inkee Gold Crow, and everything is pretty easy to adjust using the dial on the back of that light. The only time I think an app is really useful is if you have the light really high up or in some sort of area that's not easily accessible. It is convenient to have some sort of wireless or control box that you can reach with ease to adjust the light without having to constantly move and adjust the light stand or whatever the situation might be. And another feature you want to be aware of when buying one of these lights is understanding if it's bicolor or just simply daylight balanced. Typically, just daylight balanced lights have a much stronger output since they don't have to have different color LEDs on their chip. And that might be partially why the Godox VL150 slightly outperformed the 200 watt light in terms of brightness. But if you want to have the ability to adjust color temperature, then the 200 watt Manbily is the way to go because it does have that dial for adjusting the color temperature. I personally really like having bicolor lights because I like being able to adjust the color temperature without having to necessarily use like gels and things like that to adjust the color of my daylight balanced lights. But that just really depends on the type of creator you are and the types of use cases you have for your light. Last but not least, you're going to want to think about power options. Typically, when you go up in wattage, these lights are going to need some sort of dedicated power source, typically to a wall outlet. Whereas the smaller, more compact lights like the 60 watt Inkee Gold Crow pretty much have an internal battery that you can just charge using a USB-C. The cool thing about the Godox VL150 is that the control box does have a V-mount adapter on the back. So if you're someone who does have V-mount batteries, you can power this light without a wall outlet. Unfortunately, the 200 watt Manbily light doesn't have this luxury and is only powered by wall outlet. So what are my recommendations based on these findings? Let's start with the 60 watt light. 60 watts is more than enough to actually do basic talking head videos in a studio setting. As you can see in this example here, I have the 60 watt light with the 90 centimeter softbox from SmallRig, and at 100% output, it pretty much lights me up perfectly, and because of its small size and portability, it really is encouraged for someone who might be in a run and gun situation, who needs quick and easy lighting that doesn't gonna bog them down and require a lot of cables and setup. The Inkee Gold Crow 60 watt light is perfect for that sort of creation. It's not going to be strong enough to compete with daylight per se, but if you are in casual outdoor settings where you need just a little bit of fill, or if you're someone who does like weddings, for example, I think this is a great light that has a ton of output for its size. As for the Godox 150 watt light and the Manbily 200 watt light, I think their use cases are pretty similar. Both of these lights were designed for studio use. They're bulkier, they require a wall outlet or some sort of heavy V-mount battery. They output a ton of light, which is super useful, and honestly aren't very convenient for moving and carrying around in different situations. So if you have some sort of studio setup, I would highly encourage going for one of the 150-watt light or a 200-watt light, so you have a ton of control over your light and can even combat a little bit of daylight because of how powerful these lights can go. And because both of these lights come with their own apps, you can set them up in inconvenient locations really high up, out of reach, and still control them very easily. And if you do want a bicolor light so you can adjust the color temperature, I would recommend going for 200 watts and above, just so you're not sacrificing so much output from the light itself. But all of these lights are going to mean nothing if you don't know how to set up your video camera properly. So that's why I created this video guide here that you can check out that goes through every single step I go through when setting up a camera for video. So let me know what you think. Would you go for a 60-watt light, a 150-watt light, or a 200-watt light? Thank you so much for watching the video all the way until the end. If you think the video deserving, a like and a subscribe goes a long way to supporting this channel. And if you want to pick up any of these lights for yourself, the links for them will be in the description box below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.